Hey guys, hope you're all doing well. Today something a bit different. If you remember, roughly 2 weeks ago I posted a video called A Controversial Idea, and in that video I threw out a couple of ideas that could potentially help alleviate frustrating, uncounterable deaths in Battlefield games. So that's deaths from indirect fire that you might not see or hear, like mortars, tanks and bombers. There's three main suggestions in there. The first is that if a tank or a plane is, let's say, aiming at you, then you might get an indication on your minimap that's happening. Nothing major, could just be a red outline that's hard to notice. The second is that if a tank, bomber or mortar has fired a shot, its landing location will be marked roughly on the minimap, similar to how the Infiltrator mortar strike or L-class destroyer mortar strike is. And the third idea is that if a tank or a plane is nearby you or above you, again you get some kind of outline or something on the minimap that says, hey, there's something big and scary nearby that could potentially kill you in one hit. That video has over 4,500 comments on it. Some people hated the ideas, some people loved them, others agreed that whilst those three suggestions might not be the best solutions, that there was in fact a problem with uncounterable deaths in the game. In turn, that sparked discussion, which is great. There were a couple of threads posted about the video up on Reddit too, and we'll be taking a look at those in just a second. Before we get stuck in, I also want to say that these are just ideas, if you didn't get that from the video. That's all they are. I might not necessarily agree with them, even though I've created the video. The point is to get people talking and discussing about a game franchise that I and they love. And they're just some potential thoughts that could go into the game. My personal opinion on the matter is that DICE could do a lot better with creating more audio and visual clues that indirect fire is on the way, rewarding those players who are being more attentive and therefore not as frustrated when they inevitably get killed by indirect fire. Perhaps making the game a bit less chaotic too. The way they go about that though is entirely up to them, it's their game. But there's no doubt that what I've just described is one of the biggest turn-offs for new players to the franchise, and I want to see the Battlefield games grow. I wanted to say too that if you have any ideas or feedback on how Battlefield games could improve in certain respects in your opinion, then you should absolutely make videos about it, posts on Reddit, on Twitter. A lot of the big developers there look at this stuff all of the time and they love getting feedback and reactions from the community. They often post surveys too on Twitter, for example, that anyone can complete. Anyone can do this. It isn't just exclusive to full-time content creators like myself. There's plenty of ways that you can make a well-constructed video and get your point across. You could even do it on your phone if you wanted to. And I encourage you to do it too. If you love the Battlefield franchise and have something to say about it, then get yourself out there and do it. I was inspired to make this video after reading a couple of threads regarding my video on the Battlefield subreddits. I know I don't really have to do this, but there were some interesting points in there that should be discussed, but also some misconceptions and misinformation that I wanted to address. You should know that I don't take any of this personally either. I think as a content creator on the internet, YouTuber, Twitch streamer, whatever, there's always going to be people who don't like you, and you just have to accept that. And also, come on, it's the internet, you can't take most of it seriously anyway. I think one of the problems with sharing stuff on the internet is that often you might just read the headline and not the actual content, or maybe you'll catch a snippet of something, or perhaps someone makes something up about a person and then spreads it, others believe it to be true, and then that's just fact for them. Some people like you, some people just don't. Sometimes no matter what the facts are, they've already made their mind up. I think that even if you were the perfect human being who never did anything wrong, inevitably you can't please everyone, and you shouldn't need to either. There's always going to be people who disagree with what you have to say, and that's great, otherwise life would be really boring. So let's take a look at the first thread then, and this one was created by a user called the Mexican Juan. The title of the thread is as follows: DICE for Battlefield 2018, please for the love of everything that is holy, don't listen to the YouTubers. And the main content of the post is this: it's been a common practice for DICE to invite YouTubers to private sessions to play the game and give their feedback, but that results in subjective opinions from these YouTubers that DICE takes and implements in the game, and the result is maps and guns that aren't balanced and a gameplay that was tailored to YouTubers' opinions who aren't experts in gameplay design in any shape or form. These YouTubers get to be ambassadors for millions of players, of which 95% of them never even heard of said YouTubers. Case in point, JackFrags just posted this video suggesting that DICE should babysit new players to the franchise and show them on the HUD whether a tank or plane is nearby even without those vehicles being spotted. And then he links my video. I love JackFrags, but that's just not the opinion I want to circulate around and eventually considered by DICE just because Jack said so. Okay, cool post. Thanks for linking to my video too. Now, there's a couple of things in here I'd like to talk about. Mexican Juan here said, JackFrags just posted this video suggesting DICE should babysit new players to the franchise and show them on the HUD whether a tank or plane is nearby even without those vehicles being spotted. Yeah, that's roughly one of the ideas in the video, but he didn't mention the other two ideas in his post, and he didn't mention the context or the theme of the idea either. He also implied that I said that DICE should do this and its goal is to babysit new players to the franchise. So he's missed out a lot of context here, and that's twisted the theme of the video, whether he's done that deliberately or not. So I want to say that remember that these are just ideas up for discussion. At no point did I say, hey, DICE need to do this right now, listen to me, it'll make the game great, trust me. Nothing like that. The goal with a video like this, when I make it, is to see if people think that maybe there is an issue with indirect fire, uncounterable deaths in the game, and if there is, you know, how can that perhaps be improved? There will be more discussion on this specifically as we look through some of the comments I've picked out from the thread, and we will get into specifics then. So in this post, he mentions game changers too. Yes, it is true that EA and DICE invite YouTubers to play games early and give feedback on them in a program called Game Changers, and there's a small group of people who get to go in and play games early to give feedback on them. I get invited to a lot of those events. The builds of the games that we get to play are very much work in progress. They're not complete. Some features will be missing, some features we won't ever get to test or even give feedback on. There'll be stuff that's in the final game that we never get to see in the Game Changers events, for example. It is all under NDA though, so I can't talk specifics, but I am allowed to say that I'm part of that program. But I also know from doing a lot of reading online and watching other people's videos, there's a load of misinformation and speculation about what Game Changers is. So I wanted to address that. First up, I don't often get personal or talk about myself that much on here. I generally don't like talking about myself, but I wouldn't describe myself as a YouTuber. I'm primarily a gamer who's gamed my whole life, and I love to create stuff and hopefully educate and entertain. And that's now my career and hobby. Battlefield is a game franchise that I've always loved, and I've played every single Battlefield game apart from the Battlefield 2 console port. So I've got thousands of hours total playtime, and that includes competitive play in BF3 and BF4. When BF 1942 came out, I was still in school, and as soon as I got home, I was online playing it with mates, flying around in a B-17 and having a blast. Desert Combat, I bet some of you guys don't even know what that is. One of my favourite mods of BF 1942, and I'd carry my PC and CRT monitor to LAN, go with friends, and just sit there for hours playing it. It was incredibly fun. Battlefield 2 on PC is one of my favourite games of all time. Why am I saying this? Well, sometimes I see discussions on Reddit and Twitter with people claiming that I started playing Battlefield games when BF3 came out. That's not true, and I think they're just making that assumption because that's when I started my YouTube channel and built it up around BF3, and maybe they don't really know me or care to watch my videos. That's okay. If they want to think that, then they can. Maybe they're saying it to push an agenda about me. I don't know. The point I'm making here is that when I attend these small Game Changer events, I'm not going in there as a YouTuber, I'm going in there as a Battlefield fan, and I try to see the big picture. My agenda isn't, oh, how can I influence the developers to make this game exactly to my needs so I can go on a sick infantry kill streak and therefore make more money on YouTube? That's ridiculous, but I've seen people say that. Also, no one is paid to attend Game Changer events either. That's another thing that I see online a bunch. I've been to around 15 to 20 events in total across 5 different games all over the world as part of Game Changers. I don't get paid for my time away from work, which is sometimes 4 to 5 days when I'm away from home and not working. I don't get to record the gameplay when I'm at these events and upload it to YouTube because it's all under NDA and work in progress. I go to these events because I love the games, and it's cool to see how everything comes together and meet the developers, chat with them, have lunch with them. It's awesome. I actually lose time and money attending these events, but that doesn't bother me because I get to travel, see new places and play cool games before they're released. It's really fun, I love doing this. The only thing that EA are paying for here is my flight and hotel. And I'm brutally honest with the developers too, and they ask me to be that way. So if I think an idea or a gameplay mechanic is bad or good or gimmicky, I'll say it, and I'll tell them that, and I'll do my best to explain why I think that. And I think that's what the developers want to hear. What features are missing from this game? What does the RSP need? What do you think of this new gameplay mechanic? Is the netcode good enough? And because of my Battlefield-centric audience, I get to read and hear a wide range of opinions and problems and feedback from you guys. I even reference some of your guys' comments as well sometimes. The feedback at these events doesn't just come from me though, of course, or just YouTubers. So going back to the post that Mexican Juan made, he said the following: "The result is maps and guns that aren't balanced and gameplay that was tailored to YouTubers' opinions who aren't experts in gameplay design in any shape or form. These YouTubers get to be ambassadors for millions of players, of which 95% never even heard of said YouTubers." I love Jack Frags, but that's just not the opinion I want to circulate around and eventually considered by DICE just because Jack said so. Thank you for the love, Juan, but hopefully I've already shown you that that isn't the case at all. And get this, most of the people that attend the Game Changer events are not full-time YouTubers. At the last event I attended, there were 13 people there, very small group. 2 of them, including myself, were full-time content creators on YouTube, and 1 of them was a full-time live streamer. The rest, the overwhelming majority, were fans of the game that we were playing and people who just play the game regularly from all walks of life. Competitive background, casual background, veteran players who were older, players who may have left a specific franchise because they didn't like where it was going and the devs want to get their opinion, people who play every now and again. There's a massive range there, male and female, young and old, and everyone talks and gives feedback. There's a balance there from a wide and diverse group of players. It isn't just me talking the entire time and the whole dev team just staring at me and rampantly taking notes to see what Jack has to say. I wouldn't want it to be that way either. I don't think my opinion or my ideas are any more valuable than anyone else's, and I never will. It's a group discussion just like it is online, and DICE are the people making the games here. It's their choice whether they take the community's feedback on board or not at the end of the day. Going back to what I said earlier, that's the beauty of it. If you, watching this video now, have an idea or a suggestion, then make a video, make a post on Reddit, make a tweet. Anyone can do it. If it's constructed well and you put your argument across well, they will notice it. They're watching. Anyone can do it nowadays. There's no agenda for me attending these Game Changer events either. I just really enjoy going. As I said, I don't make money from going to these under NDA events. I don't do it to stay in the good books of EA or DICE. In fact, there are fans, YouTubers, live streamers who have never attended a Game Changer event and still get invited to the world exclusive gameplay capture events like EA Play and Gamescom, for example. It doesn't matter, it simply doesn't work like that. The smaller Game Changer events that people often wonder what they comprise of are for feedback only. It's nothing to do with marketing until gameplay capture becomes available at the big public exhibitions like EA Play. And that's when they invite the largest pool of YouTubers, celebrities, all the other game changers to come in, record gameplay, and get out as much exposure of the game as possible. And in terms of spreading an idea into the community, I always portray my ideas as just that, ideas, and I want people to discuss them. That's the point. With that said, let's take a look at some of the more interesting comments from this thread based on my video. Again, just ideas, not requests. So let's start strong. This one comes from Cryptic Panther. Jack Frags is a whiny bitch. I couldn't watch more than a few minutes of this asshole crying about getting killed while on a huge kill streak. What a fucking crybaby bitch. Thanks for that, Cryptic Panda. And this one from Thibby Serge Gainsbourg. They said, that's weird from Jack. I generally love his videos and agree with his ideas and opinions on games, but this one in particular is dumb. We need tutorials, not in-game babysitting. Good point. I think that a proper tutorial system would go a long way in Battlefield games, especially for new players. I've even done a video talking about that in the past and made up a pretend tutorial system for multiplayer. CNCNZ Stalin commented, to be honest, he has a point. I don't agree with it, it's called a learning curve. The only thing I thought would be good was a slight increase in sound for a mortar to all players in a large enough radius that there's a mortar in the air but no indication to who it's going towards. To me that's fair, but to have it ping on a map or indicate who it's going towards is wrong. We're not playing COD here. Sound immersion is good, it keeps me on my toes and makes me focus better. If the game isn't a challenge, then they won't have any only in Battlefield moments. You want to feel relief and success, but on terms that feel like a challenge and make you want to come back to the game. Totally, great comment. Perhaps mortars and bombs from planes could make a more distinctive whistling sound, let's say, so you're more aware of them if you aren't looking into the sky for them. Mr. Akko replied to the original post with, "Agree 100%, I hate that all these self-entitled dumbfucks all of a sudden find BF1 boring and dictate how the next BF should be. If DICE want to hear what we think, they should make a poll and take data from that." Mr. Akko, I'm sorry that you feel that way. I promise you that I'm not self-entitled. I don't feel like my voice is any more important than yours or the next guy's. Also, I like BF1 in general. I don't think it's boring. And hopefully, if you watch this video and you believe me, you'll see that I don't in fact dictate how the next Battlefield game should be. Abono Mech Center said, "They ruin everything, the YouTubers. The worst thing is they keep tossing shit on BF1 despite the devs actually did everything to appease those fucks." I just thought that one was funny. Sloppy Joe 4, YouTubers, while do provide some insight, I would rather not have absolute control of what is correct and what is should not, as one could fully understand what and how a certain weapon works and another does not, leading to misinformation. Instead, as you said, should be given to people who have studied the maps, guns and such, as they could provide more useful insight. Again, as I mentioned earlier, that YouTubers actually are a minority in these focus groups. Bruce Wayne had an interesting viewpoint here. "I actually do not feel bothered with dying of clusterfuck stuff. Why? Because it is the spirit of war. I am not dead, but my squad mate did. It is because I was lucky enough that the bomb exploded close to him. I feel we must not be able to indicate it about these." So I think what this guy is saying here is that he actually enjoys the random deaths and chaos of the Battlefield games. And I get that some people enjoy that. But for me, the original video idea stemmed from the fact that those things are uncounterable, which is what I don't like about them. But I understand that sometimes you will run into a tank or a plane and die to it without being able to fight back. That's the nature of Battlefield. And I also see why people think that this could be holding players' hands too easily. The next one comes from Let the Peacock Fly 97. JackFrags has some good and not so good ideas. I think it's because he makes so much money, he's such a big influencer, but honestly a lot of his ideas are trash when it comes to how the game should be played. He said, quote, "They should remove damage from barbed wire and random fire because it's annoying to get killed by. No duh, it's annoying but it's realistic. This isn't Call of Duty." First off, I really don't like that term influencer. If you watch my videos, I don't want you to be influenced to do anything. Make your own mind up. And the thing about the barbed wire and random fire doing damage though, I stick by that. I think that should definitely be toned down for the next Battlefield game. It's just really annoying to be running along and then immolated and turned into the Human Torch by a small flame on the ground. Also, I have to say that I don't think Battlefield is a realistic game. For me, it's an arcade multiplayer shooter, and I'd personally rather have more fun in the game than be annoyed by little environmental things that can damage you like that. It just makes the game a bit more RNG in my opinion. Lord Thunderbolt said, "What's funny is that these YouTubers are COD players at heart. You can see it in their gameplay." Well, I've definitely played more Battlefield than COD. Haven't really enjoyed a COD game or played one for any significant period of time since Modern Warfare 2. Whereas I've played all of the major Battlefield games for hundreds of hours each, some of them over 1,000 hours. So I'm definitely more of a Battlefield player. I think that COD needs to go back to the drawing board and reevaluate what they're doing. Don't Be Red in This commented, "You right. I hope to God they don't listen to JackFrags, who is a straight up imbecile. He and others will turn this game into trash they'll complain about later because their suggestions are short-sighted." Fair enough, if he feels that way that's fine, but I do try my best to be as balanced as possible with suggestions and ideas. Mr. Pellegro said, "I'm fine with YouTubers making comments, but take it with a grain of salt, DICE and community. Their ideas shouldn't be gospel. I agree with you, that's exactly right. Ben Trolled said this: "For your information, these DICE paid fanboy YouTubers would never post videos about the game balance problems, matchmaking problems, etc. Sending DICE a message about this would kill the goose that lays the golden egg. Remember the source when watching these in DICE's pocket YouTubers." Well, if Ben is serious and actually believes that and isn't trolling, then that makes me sad, because that couldn't be any further from the truth. I've been creating YouTube content on Battlefield games now since 2011. It'll be 7 years come this October. In that time, I've made countless videos which criticised gameplay elements in Battlefield games, showcasing game-breaking bugs, glitches, stuff that was OP, balance issues, bad netcode, asking for battle recorder, more RSP controls, helping the South African community when they didn't have any local servers to play on, pushing for the removal of premium and season pass models to not split the community, and also matchmaking problems. That's something that I've directly addressed. And those are some of the examples off the top of my head that I could think of. To say that I've never posted a video about problems with the franchise, absolutely incorrect. And most of the issues and problems with these games, I've directly brought them up in person at Game Changer events. I wish that some of you guys could have been a fly on the wall to see some of those discussions that we've had. Moving on, Bog Elf said, "I actually agree with JackFrags here. BF is generally good with giving you counters against threats, but mortars, bombs from airplanes and long-range shots from tanks and artillery suck because you probably had no idea that you were ever even a target, so you can't do much about them. In close range, audio cues work well, and sniper glint for long range snipers. I think the sniper glint could perhaps be extended to direct artillery when zoomed in, and the minimap red circle could work for mortar and bomber, show circle when mortar or bombs are in flight. These things would not give you much time to react, but you might have enough time to duck behind cover or run out of the circle if you were near the edge of it." Pretty much exactly how I feel, Bug Elf. I agree with you. I think being able to see on the minimap where ordnance from bombers and artillery is landing after it's been fired would be really useful for skilled players. And yes, it is hard to spot or hear tanks, for example, that are far away from you because you can't hear them or they're simply not loud enough. So maybe tanks in Battlefield games should be a bit louder and a bit more scary. So then at least you won't need any indication that a tank is nearby. You can hear it if it's not in your field of view. And Sunjay140 had a similar viewpoint too. Tanks aren't the only thing that he spoke about. You should never die for reasons beyond your control. A player should die for being outplayed, not because someone 300 meters away threw a mortar into the air to get cheap kills. Yeah, 100% agree with you. So that was just a few of the comments on there that I highlighted. I will link the thread down in the description below. There was another thread though that I found about the same topic on another Battlefield subreddit by the user DoveWriter. The title is "Battlefield YouTubers and Silly Ideas." And he said, "Why do people keep following Level Cap and JackFrags? They just keep coming up with really bizarre ideas that it hurts my head. I just saw a controversial video from Jack for an idea for 2018. His ideas would be suicide for the franchise. Getting killed without warning is part of the Battlefield experience. It's supposed to represent a loose vision of war. From the way he comes across, it just seems to be all about the kill streaks. People don't want a big sign on the screen saying, 'There's a plane in the sky about to bomb you, move.' That goes against the point of Battlefield. Too many games have been simplified to bring in new players, which defeats the purpose on learning how to better your skills. I think it would be insulting to the player's intelligence if this mechanic was in place. What are your thoughts on this? Do you think Jack and Level Cap should stop with the idea videos? They might be big YouTubers, but they shouldn't influence game design since they're not that bright and they don't speak for the community." Cool. First off, Dove, thank you for the post. The ideas in the video aren't revolving around kill streaks at all though. You could be killed by a tank that you can't see or hear when you're just running along right at the start of the game with no kills, for example. And I think that's going to be annoying for most people, whether you're on a kill streak or not. Instead, the idea of the video is about giving the player more feedback to when they're in danger from a potential one-hit kill that they can't counter. That's the point of the conversation and the discussion. Do we need it though, is the question, and you brought up some good points there. Some people think yes, some people think no. I personally don't think adding a red circle to the minimap when bombs have been dropped on your position will make a big difference to most people. They'd still get killed by the tank or the plane. After all, you're only going to have a few seconds to react. But for the attentive gamer, who's more skilled and actively looking at everything on their screen, then they might notice it and relocate so they can survive. I'm not asking for a big flashing warning on the screen that says there's a bomber above you like you've suggested in your post. Instead, what I'm proposing here is something subtle on the minimap, just to give the players a bit more feedback. I totally understand your perspective though, that historically it's supposed to be a loose vision of war, and this kind of stuff does just happen in Battlefield games, and a lot of people have accepted that's the way it is. In a way, it reminds you that you're in a simulated war and that anything can happen. And Dove also said they might be big YouTubers, but they shouldn't influence game design since they're not that bright, they don't speak for the community. And you know what, that's absolutely right. I don't speak for the community, I don't want to, and I never say that I do or act like I do. This is me, like my videos, my channel, my content. I don't think I'm some kind of voice or bastion for the community or the fans. I'd be a complete dickhead if I did. So anyone that thinks that or believes that, it isn't true. And going back to what I said earlier, you guys can have your own voice too and people will listen. Wrapping things up, there's a couple more comments on the second thread here that I wanted to talk about. This one comes from the negative one in me. They said, these kind of videos are actually really good feedback for the game developers. Let's say EA is thinking of adding a new feature to the next Battlefield game, but they're not quite sure if it's a good idea or not. So they ask a YouTuber that's been working with EA for a long time, in brackets Levelcap, JackFrags, Westy, to make a video about the topic. That way they get a lot of feedback in form of comments on the video, and this post for example, and they figure out if they should add that new feature. Okay, so whilst it's true that developers watch lots of videos on YouTube and read feedback on sites like Reddit and social media, I can tell you for a fact that I've never been asked by EA or DICE to make a video for market research reasons. It's all me and my ideas. If they asked me to do that, I wouldn't do it anyway. I don't think they ever would though. There was the Lanky Soldier on Twitter too. Whether you agree or disagree with JackFrags, he is not wrong about highlighting the problem we have in Battlefield. There's a problem, no denying in that. How it can be fixed? Well, that's the question, isn't it? And finally, a couple of comments here that I think resonate with what I was going for with the original video. The first one here from Tedious Name. Controversial ideas creates interesting and beneficial discussions in the community. It reinforces what the general player base wants. I think EA and DICE looks for the player's response rather than the idea itself. And then finally, I think Pakify sums it up nicely here. Everybody has a right to voice their own ideas and opinions, regardless of how controversial they tend to be. That's how a conversation starts. Also, it's hypocritical to tell them what they can or can't post as content. Just because you don't agree with them doesn't mean you have to go out and say they need to stop what they're doing because I don't like it. Just like how they don't speak for the Battlefield community, you don't speak for their fan base either. I don't agree with some of their ideas, but I understand that they're just putting in their suggestions as to what they may think will make the game better. This is something that we all do because we genuinely want the Battlefield games to be good. Here, I couldn't agree with you more. And that's all for today folks. As always, thank you for watching. I know this was a longer video, but there was a lot of stuff that I wanted to talk about. Hopefully you found it interesting. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. If you enjoyed the video, give me a thumbs up. If you didn't, a thumbs down. Subscribe for more, and I'll see you in the next one.